Well, Washington takes aim at Wall Street. Private equity firms about to face off with lawmakers who want to raise taxes on their way of life. Is this a war on prosperity? In Washington today, Jack Berkman, Republican strategist and attorney with J.M. Berkman and Associates, and Christian Weller, the senior economist at the Center for American Progress. Jack, what do you think? Is Washington firmly setting its sights on Wall Street with this?
Oh, it's a shame, Becky. It's a private bill to derail an IPO. I can't believe some of my Republican friends are even involved in this. You know, some people just can't leave well enough alone. The street is booming. Let it go. I'll tell you what this is. This is nothing but shakedown. This is the behind-the-scenes. This is a mafioso-style shakedown. Private equity has not put a lot of money into campaign coffers. It's almost like with Bill Gates several years ago. The phrase on the Hill these days is we have to bring the horse to water. You watch. There'll be a deal. After they shake down Schwartzman and Peterson and Blackstone, after guys like Max Baucus and Rangel, and even Chuck Grassley, I'm blaming my Republican friends, after they do the shakedown, after they get all the money in their campaign coffers, then you're going to see some kind of a deal. You know, they'll say, well, let's make it 20% and walk away. But I'll tell you what, I would encourage Blackstone, don't stand for this crap. Fight back. If people are coming to you for campaign contributions, make it known to the media. Don't take it.
All right, Christian, what do you say? Is this a shakedown, or is there another rationale for why Congress is looking at this legislation?
I don't want to impute any motives here on the part of lawmakers. Clearly, this is an issue about tax fairness. The two senators, Mr. Baucus and Mr. Grassley, are saying if it walks like a duck, it talks like a duck, it is a duck. And the private equity firms are saying they're adding value by managing the firms that they're taking private. So that is a financial service corporation. And the senators are saying they should be treated under the tax code just like corporations.
Yeah, but it's so silly. It's silly, Christian, because all that's going to do is send these IPOs offshore. I mean,
that's not the argument against it. I mean, to be honest, it's a question of tax fairness. If they have been exploiting a loophole, we need to go after the loophole. We can deal with the other issues. And it's unclear. I mean, this tax loophole has likely prolonged the unsustainable bubble that everybody is worried about.
Jack, it's a fair question. Is it a loophole or is it not?
Well,
should they be taxed at 15% or not?
It is a loophole, but the tax code is nothing but a conglomeration of loopholes, and some of them work very well indeed. This is such an example.
You know, Christian, I want to go back to you on this. What I'm surprised by.
It's a question of financial stability. We're all worried in the aftermath of the subprime bubble that this is another bubble that's about to burst. And you read the papers everywhere, and most likely this tax advantage has fueled the bubble to some degree. So I think it's completely legitimate to raise the question about tax fairness. If they're acting like a financial service corporation, treated like a financial service corporation.
If anything, Congress should be thinking about taking it down to 15% for everybody. If Goldman Sachs claims it's the same as Blackstone, and I really think they are different kinds of entities, but let's assume for the moment they're the same entity, I'm not sure you shouldn't compromise and have them all pay 18%. I think that would help America. I think that would stimulate a huge boom.
Somehow I doubt that's on the table this time around. But
there's two arguments against that. The first one is the last round of tax cuts, especially on dividends on corporations, didn't work the way it was supposed to work. It didn't stimulate investment. In fact, investment is very low. And the other part is a revenue question. We have massive holes in the government.
Okay, Christian, I want to put this to you, though. What surprised me is how lawmakers are lining up on either side. John Edwards is probably, arguably, the most populist of all the candidates that are running right now. He's actually said nice things about the hedge fund and private equity guys. Now, no surprise, he came from Fortress. But when you have somebody like John Edwards saying, hey, these are good guys, they understand the markets, and maybe the rest of the Congress doesn't, what do you make of that?
Well, Mr. Edwards is not a lawmaker anymore, and the other part is also I can't speak for presidential candidates. I can only speak for this particular proposal, and I think it's interesting that you have two moderates from both parties coming together and saying, like, look, here is an issue that clearly speaks to tax fairness. Well, but we do need to have a level playing field between the private equity players and the financial service corporations.
The reason Edwards supports Blackstone is that the unions are on that side, and Edwards is essentially a union guy. The unions really, for other reasons, support this IPO and want it very badly. They have a different legal argument altogether. That kind of explains Edwards. It's really it's a different kind of thing. But I would just throw this out to Christian. Don't you agree that the main reason the street is booming is because of the Bush tax cuts? Don't you have to at least? Now, you may think they're not fair.
The IMF, the OECD, the Joint Tax Committee have all concluded that the dividend tax cuts didn't do anything for Wall Street. They simply looked at what happened in the U.S. versus other countries, and they simply concluded Wall Street performed as any other markets. Simply the tax cuts were in terms of just stimulating stock market. Never mind corporate business outlays.
Let me ask you this. Do you have any concern that these IPOs go offshore? The London exchanges are sucking these up right and left. Is that what you want?
But the same argument is happening in the United Kingdom. I mean, and the other part is we cannot just simply like jump from a high building just because everybody else does.
Well,
I think that's a legitimate question, but then we have a real discussion over the value that these funds have added, and that is a big discussion.
Bottom line, Jack, do you think this gets passed?
I think it will. I think, sadly, they'll shake Blackstone down for enough campaign money, and they'll reach a deal with, let's say, 20 or 25% and walk away.
Kristen, you think this gets passed?
I think in some form or another, I think there's enough momentum here. It's a bipartisan bill. There is a question of tax fairness. There's a question of revenue. So I think in some form or another will get passed, yes.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. If it does get passed, we'll have you both back. We can talk about what it means for the street again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, let's get